One of the things that you talk about often is the difference between being a manager and being a leader. It's one of the things that I definitely had to learn in my work experience with leading people. You have to be encouraging. You have to make people feel confident in what their traits are. And it's not just about what it is that the work is. It's about the people.
KEPX presents a Levine Media production. This is Dignity Leadership with hosts Brooke Coleman and Rich Levine.
Welcome back to Dignity Leadership. I'm Rich Levine. I'm the founder and co-host of Dignity Leadership Live. I'm with...
Hey, I'm Brooke Coleman, and I am the Chief Inspiration Officer and the other half of Dignity Leadership.
You're the better half.
I was going to say better. I don't think so, though.
You're the better
I'm
half.
a half.
You're the beauty and the brains. I'm just the beast.
No, you are the... Gosh, you're doing so much, Rich. Honestly, we'll get into it, but you've done a ton.
I've done a ton. I just wrote a book and it's out. It's for sale.
Yeah.
It's titled, You Are Doing It Wrong. Stop Managing and Start Leading. You can get a copy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. We can show a quick copy here for everybody. If you're on YouTube, here's a copy. But it's out. But I got a surprise for you. So in this book, I'm not sure, I can't open to the right page, but we did a show not too long ago. You know me, I know all my shows. It was episode 17 if you're watching on YouTube, and it was season 2, episode 4, whatever. I got them backwards. But anyway.
Yep.
And
what was the title of the show?
It was How to Be a Better Listener.
Awesome.
Active listening. And we had Dr. Heather Barton-Weston, Dr. B-Dub. Heather was on the show. And I actually took some of the stuff from that show and I put it in the book.
Really?
But I have a surprise for you.
Okay.
We've got our first call-in guest today.
That has never happened before.
It's never happened.
Okay, and you did tell me, for all the listeners, all I have is there's going to be somebody calling in.
Yes.
It's a surprise.
And so I've already teased it up, but here's where I'm going.
Okay.
And I know she's already listening. I'm going to bring her on here in a second.
Okay.
So there I've given 2 more clues. Heather, just come on. Bring Heather onto the show.
Aha!
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey!
Happy Saturday morning.
So let's go back in time real quick while we got Heather here. So part of leadership and part of what I've been preaching all along is you got to learn, you got to grow, and you got to lead. So we transfer that. That's my why statement. Let's take that into real life. So number 1, and we do this at the end of every show, right? Mm-hmm. Say, all right, what did you learn today? How are you going to use it? And then who's going to hold you accountable? Mm-hmm. So during the show that we had Heather on, and this is about me. You guys are going to talk about me for a minute. I said I need to improve my active listening skills. And I said I was going to work on it. I said I was going to practice it. And I said, Kevin E., you ready for this? You're involved in this one. Get that mic ready.
I'm ready.
So Kevin E., Heather, and you are all my accountability partners.
Okay.
All right, so let's lay it all out. This is Attack the Host. Good or bad, how am I doing with my active listening skills? I need be real, be vulnerable. This is working on the feedback. I'm going to try to put it to good use.
Yeah.
Tell me the good and the bad. I got to hear it. That's how I grow. That's how I become better. So Heather, you want to go first? Can I put you on the spot?
Sure, that'll work. So overall, I would say you're doing quite well. I have still noticed that you wander a little bit. But other than that, no, you have actually done much, much better over the term that I've seen you in the last time we had this conversation. You're better.
So for our listeners that might have missed that other show, wandering, and I forget which step it was. You came up with 5 steps in your show, but it's basically being fully present and engaged during the whole conversation.
Yeah, so it's step number 2, remember? So we're actually, the first one is...
Shut up.
Everybody loves the first step. Shut up. Yeah. But step number 2 is making sure you're engaged both physically and mentally in the moment. Yeah.
Well,
So I still notice that you roam a little bit, but on most of the occasions that we have conversations, you're with me. So yeah, you're doing better.
So, and now from my perspective, thank you for that feedback. I needed to hear it because it validates what I've been thinking myself. I have noticed that I do start to focus better. I know I'm not focused 100%. I still want to get into my red, be quick, be bright, be gone, and wander. So I'd like to hear that I've made progress, but I got a ways to go. So now I'm going to toss it up. We're going to flip a coin. Heads, it's Kevin. Tails, it's Brooke.
Okay.
All right, I'm flipping. Kevin, what'd you call?
Tails.
And it's heads, so you have to go. How have I been doing? You and I have a lot of conversations.
I would say, considering we catch up every week, I'd say you're doing pretty good. And you never forget. And I have. So
Now, that's one of my things. Punctuality is one of my things.
I would say you're doing a real good job considering we talk weekly.
But I'm going to be a little more self-critical of myself in my conversations with you than you're going to be on me. When we talk, it's supposed to be a two-way transaction between you and I. And what happens is I end up dominating the conversation. You'll say something, make a statement, and I'll dominate it. And I got to work on with you on listening more and drawing more information out of you to put me in that listening mode so I can be a better help to you.
But it's helping me be a good listener.
But remember this.
I'm honing my listening skills.
But the exercise was not for you to be a better listener. It was for me to be a better listener.
I see your point.
Okay, so now let's bounce this over to Brooke. How am I doing, Brooke? You're going to give me, I know, okay, let's have it.
Brooke is yellow-red. So let's see. Let me give you the, I'll go into the red. Like, honestly, there's two things where I've seen, and Heather, this would be interesting to get your perspective on in a second, but what you just said, because you kind of, you did hone in on something. You're asking a lot of questions, right? But then you're dominating that. That self-awareness, that's huge. That's going to help with the listening. But what I've found is, and we all do this, and that was another one of our episodes, I don't remember which one, but where we ask questions to get the answer. Actually, Heather, that might have been with you. But we ask questions, but we're not even listening to the answer because we're already moving on, because we either have our answer or we're jumping in, right?
That was Heather.
That was Heather.
Yep.
Yay. Okay. Something happened yesterday that cracked me up. We were driving up here. I'll just give a little bit back. And he asked me a question, and I went into it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you what I think right now. And I'm going to go into the details. And when I say this, and I went on, and then I just stopped. And I looked at him, and I was like, did you hear me? He's like, I didn't hear anything after the first five words you said. And I was like, what? You did hear me, and you were listening, and then you were laughing.
Because I didn't want to hear it, because it was feedback that was, it was critical. I needed it, but I didn't want to hear it.
So here's my take on it. I think two things. You are, what we just said a minute ago, you've had a ton on your plate and you've been doing a ton of work, which means you are hyper-focused. When you are hyper-focused, it's really hard to let any of the noise outside of your focus to come in. I think you're a phenomenal listener. I think that you've really learned that, and you're working on it daily. And you've got to remind yourself to almost turn on that light switch of like, okay, I'm being so focused, I'm tuning everything out. That is still that area of growth.
So maybe it's turning the light switch off. So shut off what I'm doing and turn on the switch for what others are doing so I can become more empathetic.
That active listening. And by asking the one question and then just sitting back. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing better.
You are doing
so I
better.
appreciate your feedback.
Yes.
I appreciate your help.
Okay. And I need to say this too, because I'm learning something. When I give feedback, it's the Brooke way. Brooke always has goals that it's encouraging too. Sometimes I realize I go straight to the grain and it doesn't feel encouraging, even though I'm thinking, I'm clearly giving you great feedback. So from my loved one, I heard recently, Brooke, you're just always on my butt. That was not the word he used, but it was like, no, I'm just trying to help you. So I hope that does feel encouraging, even though, there's work to do, because I always want really good feedback that I can improve on.
Well, it's part of my why statement, so I have to have it. I've got to live it. And to be a quality leader, we've talked about this on a lot of podcasts, you've actually have to do the actions. And if you don't do what you say, then you're breaking down trust, you're destroying hope. And then ultimately you're not giving dignity. And that's what the name of our consulting company is, Dignity Leadership.
Yeah.
So Heather, I know you're pressed on time. You got any closing
comments? I actually
comments?
have two things I kind of want to point out real quick. And it was two things that Brooke had mentioned. The first one is the fact that you have taken the step back to be able to identify when you're not doing. And in the last conversation we had, I told you, you guys should ask your friends, what is reflection? One of the hardest things for people to do is self-reflect, right? And that internal self-reflection is what allows us to be able to identify our pros and our cons, and to allow us the opportunity to see where our growth can continue. The other thing I want to add in there is that growth piece. If you have not yet read the book, Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, I highly recommend it. It is an amazing read also. And it really identifies areas to where, as individuals, both professionally and personally, where we struggle with being able to grow self-reflection and accepting critical feedback that we need to be able to better ourselves. So I think that's going to be something that if you continue in this track, you're going to do quite well in your active listening path. So congratulations.
Awesome. Well, I want to be president of your time, and I appreciate you jumping on today, calling in and helping us out. Being a return guest.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes.
And Kevin, I hope everything's going well at home with your active listening and your other half.
We're all working on it. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for jumping in.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for jumping in. We appreciate you.
Yeah, not a problem. You guys have a great time, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Bye.
Thanks, Heather. Bye.
All right, so that was a cool little surprise.
That was cool. Actually, I like these surprises.
But
I didn't think I would.
So here's the thing.
Yeah,
We've got to be aware
I
of
was
time because
nervous.
we have a guest in studio with us. The guest that we've brought on is into journalism. He's MVA stuff. I got to ask him about that. He was a bar manager, a manager of a pro MMA fighter. He's got a lot of really cool things going on. But before we get to that, we got to have a quick word from our sponsors.
Have you ever wondered how to be a better leader? Do you want to learn how to motivate your employees while trying to dodge corporate BS and being happier at work? Richard T. Levine, author and leadership expert, has written a new book with the answers you're looking for. In You're Doing It Wrong, Stop Managing and Start Leading, he identifies trust, hope, humility, emotional intelligence, and empathy as core leadership values. You can find the book on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, and other book retailer websites.
Yeah, I don't know where we found that voiceover guy, but he's pretty freaking awesome.
Pretty great. I was very impressed.
He's pretty good at that stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So without any more delays,
Okay.
I would like to introduce to our show Deshaun Shepard.
Hi, Deshaun.
Hello. I'm very happy to be here.
Nice. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm a little exhausted from the NAF conference exhibiting there this week, but
What is the NAF conference?
National Auto Finance Conference.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to exhibit there this week, but it's been quite a long week, and I'm missing my wife so much. I have her face on my socks right
I
now.
love it, you guys. You can't see your socks right now, his socks, but they're awesome. They're blue socks
I'm not
with
gonna
her
stand on your
beautiful
couch.
face on it and some hearts. They're awesome. I love it. Yes.
Well, she's with us in spirit because we just
Yes.
Exactly. Right.
So let's. You and I, Brooke, we met Deshaun a year ago at this conference when we came up here and we crashed the party.
Yes.
Because I have automotive in my background, you don't, but we crashed the party. We're here where we met Deshaun, and things started going well, and our conversations were like, started talking, exchanging information. I think Deshaun probably remembers that conversation. He's like, "Hey, podcast." I'm like, "Yeah, you want to be on it?" He's like, "Heck yeah, I want to be on it." I'm like, "Cool." So with that, I'm going to ask you our first question. What is your definition of leadership, Deshaun?
Ooh, definition of leadership. So
Sir.
That's a tough one. Definition of leadership is, and that's one of the things that attracted me to you actually, and one of the things that you talk about often is the difference between being a manager and being a leader. It's one of the things that I definitely had to learn in my work experience, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I believe that leading people. You have to be encouraging. You have to make people feel confident in what their traits are, and it's not just about what it is that the work is. It's about the people. So leading people, it doesn't matter the job. And I think one of the most interesting things about one of our first conversations is that I managed title work for years and years, but I also managed a bar as well. And one of the things that you asked me was, what was the difference between the employees at the office and the employees at the bar? This is not that much of a difference. It's that we're all people, and you're leading people. So it's one of the things that I had to learn in my experiences. So
That's pretty awesome, because I think when you talk about leadership, it comes down to, so management is totally different. Like, so the way you manage the title people and the way you manage the bar staff is going to be completely different than the way you lead. So you're going to do two different things. But when it comes to leadership, you should be leading people in the same way. And that's, you just touched on it. It's
True.
working with them and finding out what motivates and what makes them tick.
Right. And I got to say, I would love to go into your background a little bit. Your background is so colorful, Deshaun, because when I just stepped in and said, "Hey, I got two questions for you," right? And one of them was, how long have you been in the automotive industry? And you said 19 years.
Yes, 19 years this
You don't
week.
look 20. How
I
can
know.
you?
Exactly
What
right.
in the world, right? And I know you get that question all the time because we did that last year.
It's funny, and I regularly perform demos for potential clients, and I go into my spiel about how I've been in this industry for 19 years,
Yes.
and everybody's mouth drops every time, right?
Right? Like,
But,
how is that possible?
You know, it scares me, though. The moment that stops, that's when I'm going to realize that I actually am probably getting old. But yeah, I consider myself an old young man in
Nice.
the industry. I actually started when I was 14 years old. So.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hang on, 14 plus.
Yeah, now I
19.
just
Yeah,
told you my
Whoa,
age,
yeah.
right? Easy to do the math.
So let's go into your question on the
Yeah.
colorful background. So pick one. So you gave me a list of a lot of different things you did. What's one of your dive into one of them and let's talk about it from that perspective, what it taught you, whether it be MMA fighter, bar manager, working with titles, or even journalism. Pick one and let's dive into it for a minute.
Yeah, so I mean, I would like to start with the bar actually, because that's when I started to learn about what I was doing wrong as a manager
Ooh, I
in my
love that.
office setting.
Okay.
I reached out to a friend of mine. I always wanted to bartend. I'm a very social person. I like alcohol too.
Yes.
It's like a hobby of mine. I don't want to refer to myself as alcoholic or anything like that. But I was always interested in making drinks for people, all of my friends at parties. And I was
Yeah.
like, you know what, I could probably try bartending. And I had a friend who was managing a bar in Baltimore. So I reached out and just said, hey, I'm not a bartender. I have no experience whatsoever, but it looks like you could use someone to talk to people. I would regularly visit, and I noticed that, you know, people are just sitting there and the bartenders are kind of just minding their business, but you got to kind of talk to people, right? So I was like, you know, I can do that part.
That is
but you-
incredible insight, man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, I said I can do that part, but you know, as far as making drinks, I'll mix some whiskey and Coca-Cola for my friends. But if someone asks for a complicated drink, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do, you know, whatever it is that they need. But the reason why I bring up the bar and me learning about myself is because I was an employee at the bar. And now I have a manager that I'm reporting to, and now I'm with the other employees, and they're telling me things that employees wouldn't say to me, you know, at my full-time job. So, you know, in that experience, I started to learn both positives and negatives about my boss at the bar.
Yes.
And I started to take that into my full-time job because I knew how it affected me. I knew what I wanted out of my manager. And, you know, I realized the effect, positive and negative, that certain things that you do as a leader can have on your employees. So
That is incredible. I gotta say, you what you just said here, I'm spinning because I'm going back on my week and going, oh, you just turned on 10 light bulbs. You have no idea. So I'm going to focus in, but I got some work to do based on what you just said.
Exactly.
The amazing part of what you just said too, though, is that aha moment of going to the bar and being an employee. So you step back. Here you are, years and years in a business that you know probably like the back of your hand at this point, right? Starting at 14.
Better than the back of my hand.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And you sometimes this kind of goes into active listening too, right? You're almost on autopilot when you know something so well. Now all of a sudden you're in a new industry, new environment, and you're the employee again. And you're looking at fresh eyes and fresh ears. And the beauty of it too, though, is you knew your strength. So you came in with what you already knew you were good at. And all of a sudden there's that humbling moment of I'm really good at this, but oh my gosh, now I'm getting that perspective that I haven't had in a long time. That had to change a lot, right?
And I'm absolutely happy that you said that, because that's another part of what I started to learn about myself being an employee at the bar. Like I said, no experience whatsoever. And we also cooked food. I cannot cook. I remember my very first customer asked me to pour a beer, and I went over to the tap. Nothing but foam in the entire cup. I was like, this might not be for me. In 2 months, I became a supervisor of the night crew.
Nice.
So what that told me is, you know, there's people have leadership personalities and you know, traits about them, character traits.
Yeah.
And it was just another, you know, you ran down that list, and we could talk about some of those other things as well. But I was just living in the moment, doing all of those things. But every single thing I've ever done, I ended up becoming some sort of leader. in whatever it is that I was doing. And that really kind of just, I poured a cup of foam, and now I'm leading people. So that's, you don't have to have, the skill of what the operation is, but you do have to be a good leader of people. So
from a scientific standpoint, I love to get nerdy. So you go in and you're working in this bar, but what you did is you gave a visible display of vulnerability. You went in there with a willingness to learn and to do things. And I know those employees had to see, like, hey, here's this guy. And they probably first went through their mind was, why did we hire this person? They don't even know how to pour a beer. They can't mix a drink, and they can't cook food. What value are you going to bring? But then they start seeing that how you interact with people, and then your willingness to learn, your vulnerability. And vulnerability builds up trust.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's huge. Here's a question I wanted to ask you. So you went to the bar and you started working, and then you said you started learning about yourself and taking that back to your other job. Can you like elaborate on that? Talk us through, our listeners. What did that look like for you, and what did you learn at the bar that you took to your, we'll call it your other job, your professional job? They're all professional. I don't want to limit, but the job you've been in for 19 years.
The Office.
Yes, the Office.
You actually mentioned it as The Office. So what was that shift?
So the number one thing for me is that perception is reality, right? And like I said, the person that hired me at that bar was a very close friend of mine, where he wasn't exactly a close friend with all of the employees at the bar. So there would be things that, some of my coworkers at the bar would tell me, and they were absolutely wrong about his character, and I knew things about him that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And, certain things that they would say, I'm like, it's the impression that he's giving off. And something that I started to think about is that during a certain time in my career, I would hear from certain people that I was mean, and it completely shocked me, genuinely shocked me, because I thought I was a very nice person, and I'm very outgoing. Like I said, that's why I'm working at a bar. I like talking to people. But what I didn't realize is that my actions, the way that I would respond to certain questions, I started to actually pay attention. I started to pay attention to, did I just get smart with that person? Because I'm just in a funk right now, where before the bar, it was just every day I'm just doing what it is that I'm doing. I'm an expert at this stuff.
Right.
I know everything, not thinking about the leadership part and how you can affect people on their everyday life. So
that's pretty powerful.
I was thinking it's that human connection is what. That human connection, there's no leadership, right?
And I'll add that when I started to pay attention to myself and the things that I was doing, my work life became better.
Did your team become better?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The whole just employee retention, all of that kind of stuff is. You could just tell that, people were more encouraged. I noticed it. I noticed some of the things that I started to do, like celebrating employees, acknowledging things. There were certain things that I would never even think to do. But I realized, the effect that I could have on someone's life as a leader. So
nice.
So you talked about something that I really like, and it's kind of like my story. I was mean as a boss, and not because. So I'm a nice person, genuinely care. So here's what I'm trying to
genuinely
go
cares.
Yes,
That's
I
really
genuinely
important
care.
to say.
I genuinely do care about people. But what happens is I started getting focused on the tasks and the end product and the metrics, the measurements. How do we get to where we need to go? And so I was taught by all my older mentors, nothing against them, but that's just the way they were brought up, is like, okay, here's how you've got to do it. You've got to hit these things.
Right.
So you just touched on it, and I learned on this. So here's what I want to say to people that are managers out there right now that are focused on, got to hit my sales numbers, got to hit my budget numbers, got to get the project done on time. And you're saying to yourself, but I'm a nice person. Nobody's saying you're not a nice person.
Right.
But it's your approach in how you do it that it's putting the words into action. And so you've got to live that niceness. And if somebody is not getting their metrics done, or they're not hitting the sales goals, you've got to sit down and ask them questions like, Deshaun, what's going on, man? How can I help you? Instead, what we do as managers, not leaders, and I was there, is, Deshaun, what the hell? You're 5 widgets short of this week's goal. Come on, get with it. Now, there's two different things. One of them, you're gonna break down and say, you're gonna tell me what's going on, right? Because I actually showed some care about you.
Exactly.
The other one is, I'm like, just give me your numbers. I'm still the same person. I'm still a nice guy. I still go to church. I still have my faith. I still take care of my family.
Sure.
That doesn't change. But it's the outward actions
Yep.
that we deliver.
Yep. And I started to realize like words are important.
Words
and there's
are so
certain ways
important.
of going about
Yes.
what you're trying to get out of an employee, right? So an example that I always bring up is that one of the things that would always bother me is if someone repeatedly asked questions and I trusted the employee to just make their own decisions.
Yes.
I wasn't delivering my trust in the employees in an effective way.
Sure.
I wasn't. All you had to do was say, "I trust you to make your own decisions." But instead, it's you asked me this yesterday.
Yes.
You know, and there's a big difference.
And they kind of start
between the
shut
two.
down, right?
Exactly.
Slowly.
Right. Exactly. So I started to just think about better ways that I could make employees understand that this is me trusting you. Instead of,
That's interesting because both said nice. I would say the same thing about me, right? Sometimes I just think I'm just pure sunshine, right? Oh, I'm so nice and I'm getting to know you. And yet, when I was in that leadership, that key leadership role, for me, it wasn't because I'm not like honing in on the task. I can and I will at certain times, but that's not my MO. What I did, I wasn't mean. I became completely disengaged, truly, with my staff. The thing that actually for me feeds my soul, interacting with people, just like you said, I am a people person. I love it. I completely disengaged with them. And then we started to see things not go as well. When I was engaged with them, when I would meet with them, give them vision, I always called it like casting the net, like wide. This is why we do what we do. They would walk away going, okay, I know what we're doing now, and I feel empowered. When I started disengaging, I couldn't even have a conversation with them. I wasn't even listening.
And to your point, too, with me starting when I was 14 years old, a lot of these people I grew up in front of.
Yes.
And then I entered a leadership role. And what sucks is a part of the culture that I was used to is employees are in the break room saying whatever that it is that they, say. And I was a part of that. But the moment that I entered leadership, I all of a sudden wasn't sitting in the break room anymore.
You were like shutting yourself off, right?
Exactly. So becoming disengaged. And, when I started to realize something like that, there's things that you can do about that. And these people are family, friends. Like I said, I've grew up with these people, but all of a sudden now that I'm a boss, you can't talk to me about certain things. And that's not the case whatsoever. It shouldn't be the case.
It should not be the case.
So I want to talk about the boss thing because you were a boss of a man. You managed a pro MMA fighter. But before we get to your story, we got to have another quick commercial break. As a business person, you want your employees to grow and improve. But how can you cultivate them when you're buried at work? Dignity Leadership Mind Sprint trains busy managers to be better communicators and trusted leaders in just 12 weeks. This program will help you learn how to understand your leadership style and how it affects your team. Use different communication techniques successfully to lead more effectively. Build trust with your team so they want to work with you. Implement your team's goals and strategy. Each week includes online courses, reading, and exercises to help you apply what you've learned. Once a week, you'll meet with your coach to discuss progress, ask questions about readings and assignments, and get feedback on how you're applying the concepts at work. Dignity Leadership Mind Sprint. Are you ready to unlock your leadership potential? All right, so we're sitting here with Deshaun Shepard. We're talking about the personal journey that you've gone through.
This is such an incredible journey, by the way. I'm having so much fun on this conversation. I'm going to be really sad when it ends, which means you're coming back to Deshaun.
I was thinking about that when, me and Rich would talk. I'm like, we might need, do a part 1, part 2.
Exactly, yes. Because what this is, this is the meat.
Yes.
We're truly, and I know, we're going to get into the next part, but what we've really learned, Rich and I, is that there's so many leadership options out there, right? Dignity leadership, what we really feel passionate about is bringing up those managers to, one, see themselves as the leaders they can be, empower them and give them the tools they can be, because so many times they're just swept into that role, and then you're just out there kind of just trying to keep your head above water, right? Yep. So I'm loving this. What your journey, you're basically encapsulating what we do, and I just love it.
That's exactly why I, for some reason, gravitated towards you guys. So,
well, there's good vibes in the air. People pick
Absolutely.
up on it. Absolutely. Good energy. So let's talk about you being a manager of a pro MMA fighter. Because I find this, so when I think of MMA fighters, I think of these guys that can literally kick anybody's behind, snap them in half.
All I know is they wear shorts. They're all sweaty. There's blood everywhere, and sometimes it's a cage. That's all I know. That's all I know.
So here's where I kind of want to find out. I think they've got to have an ego, right? Because I'm pretty sure when they get in a cage, they're like,
little bit.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to kick your butt, right?
Yeah.
Because if they get in there and go, I'm pretty sure you're going to kick my butt, then they're going to lose.
It's over.
All right. So walk us through that journey about managing an MMA fighter. This is awesome.
It's funny that you say ego because the name of our company was called Enticement. That was our whole thing.
Wow.
Is, confidence and being, egotistical. But that's just all a part of the game.
That's the hype, right?
Yeah, exactly right. But it's funny, and I am far from, being a fighter or anything like that. The blood bothers me. It was one of the toughest, things to deal with is watching my best friend fight. So that's who I was managing was my best friend, someone I grew up with since I was 5 years old.
Wow.
So you guys see me. I don't know if you could tell how small I am on camera, but this guy, we were the same size when we were 5 years old,
Sure.
but he's big, played running back in college,
Wow.
just all muscle, just the complete opposite of me. So,
You're all muscle. You just don't have as much muscle as he does.
yeah,
Come
right,
on.
right.
It's all good.
As much muscle as you, Rich.
No.
But what happened was he entered the fighting world, and it's a very unforgiving sport all across the board, as far as what it does to your body, the lack of income that's there, and he was just all about fighting, just focused on fighting, and there is not enough money in that game to just fully just be training for a fight and not having a regular income. So he expressed that concern to me, and he knows all about me and my, personality and my character traits. So he asked, I just need someone to go out and try to book the fights. I can't walk into somewhere and say, hey, I want to fight. I need someone like you to, contact these people. So I agreed to it, and we just went in head first, no budget, money whatsoever. We barely spent any money at all. And what I started to learn about myself there is that I had the ability to get in contact with who I needed to get in contact with. And I would come up with a whole bunch of different ideas, sports bars that show MMA fights. I'm calling every sports bar in Maryland and saying, hey, we have a local fighter who's on the rise. He's going to be fighting this weekend. Could we have a party here? I promise you that I'll bring at least 50 people. We have friends. We're going to bring in some revenue to your bar. So we would do events like that. And I was just, the whole entire experience was unbelievable the entire time because we didn't know what we were doing, but we were doing it. And it was a beautiful experience.
But you had a vision though, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, with the whole Enticement brand, and we wanted to, one of our main goals going into it is there's this big Baltimore promotion called Shogun Fighting, right? And it's the biggest promotion in Maryland. And for some reason, they wouldn't allow Scott, his name is Scott Noble, they wouldn't allow him to fight at their events. So when I became his manager, I got in contact with them and said, hey, he's undefeated right now. He's knocking people out. What's going on? The guy said to me, he can't sell tickets.
Interesting.
And I said, well, that's what I'm doing here now.
Yeah.
I guarantee you he can sell tickets. And then, he said, all right, well, give it some time, sign up for some other promotions, and we'll see what you got going on. So I started booking fights all over the East Coast, and we were having people from Baltimore travel to Massachusetts.
Wow.
I'm showing these guys the following
He
that
has
we have.
the following now.
Exactly. And we ended up getting a fight in Shogun and selling tickets to the arena there in Baltimore. So that was a big goal that we ended up fulfilling.
So here's what I picked up on that from a leadership standpoint. So you walk in there and this guy says you can't sell tickets. And you had a belief, you had faith in yourself. You'd never done this before. But you said, yes, we can sell tickets, which was a vision, which gave hope. And you did all these things that are like,
Oh, I got it. Okay, go ahead.
No,
Finish.
go.
I just wrote down vision right before he said it. I just want to point that out because what I was thinking, the same thing, leadership. What you just honed in on, you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs have to have vision. They have to have the confidence in who they are, know who they are, because you're going to get knocked down over and over again. You're going to be told no 1,000 times before you get a yes, right? Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny looking back on it, I see that now, but in that moment I was just living in it, and I
But
didn't
that's
know.
what is the beauty of it, because you are honing those leadership skills in the moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also, that was another thing that fed into the whole leadership concept, is that I was leading my best friend. You know, he was looking to me for leadership.
I was going to ask something about that. Tell me about your friend's personality. It sounds a little bit different than yours.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you know, and it's funny. He is outgoing and charismatic just as
Yeah.
much as I am, but he's a football player with coaches, and like he needs leadership, and he'll be the
Sure.
first to tell you that, and he'll be the first to tell you that he needed me to lead him
Sure.
and keep him straight. So and that's something that I didn't realize that I was doing as well, making sure that, you know, he's sticking to his meal plans, making sure that he's living right to make weight before the fight. I had to kind of keep him in check.
Yeah.
And what I was very passionate about it because it was my best friend. And I realized that my passion was helping us succeed. I was very, very much into it because I wanted him to succeed as much as possible. And I wanted to do anything that I could to make that happen. So.
Can I nerd out again?
Please. Yeah, this is
So
good.
here's what I'm hearing. So you were a manager, right? But you're mixing these words in with leader. And so you were just saying that you had to make sure he made weight. Management.
Yeah.
You had to make sure he ate his right meals and food. Management.
Keep him in check.
You had to keep him in check. Leadership. That's leadership. And then a lot of the other things that you brought in were leadership is, I mean, I could only imagine what this guy's thinking. Like, dude, I can't sell any tickets. Don't worry, I got your back. Back your brother's play. You go out there and you go and you sign up and you get him in front of these best venues and you start doing it. What you did is you give him hope. You give him confidence. You give him inspiration. So there's two different things here I want to cover before you get too far. There's inspiration and there's aspiration. Okay? You inspired him to go out there and kick somebody's butt in front of a lot of people. He aspired. Okay? The difference is aspiration is he wants to do it.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of things. He's lifting weights. He's eating right. He's doing these things, all management style things. He didn't have the belief or the vision or the vulnerability to put himself out there to go get it. That's where you come in with leadership. You made yourself vulnerable. Had you ever been an MMA fighter manager before?
No, not
Exactly.
at all. Not
Had
a
you
part
ever
of the culture at
have
all.
you ever sold tickets like that before?
No, not at
Had
all.
you ever been a bar manager before? You see, this is where I'm going with this. You are vulnerable. You're willing to learn, and when you learn, you grow. And when you grow, you can start leading. You're like you are the epitome, my friend, of what
We were on television in months.
Now you're just on a podcast on YouTube. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, someday we'll be famous, maybe.
You know, I think that one part that we didn't mention, we're saying all the other words though too, and this is critical for both who your friend was and who you are, is that you believed in him and you believed in where you could go. Could it have failed? It could have failed. It could have failed. Really. I mean, that's the reality of the world we live in. But it didn't, and that's awesome. I'm not saying it, you know, like it honestly, sometimes, and actually it flourished. It flourished.
What it did for me, it was my greatest professional experience ever. It made me believe that I can do anything. It made me,
That's
it convinced
incredible.
me to shatter my glass ceilings.
So let's do this. Let's tie all this together. All these different things. 19 years, 20 years, a lot of years of being very good in the automobile business. Becoming a bar manager, managing a fighter. Tie out, what are all the commonalities? What are all those experiences? How did that make you the person or the leader you are today?
Transferable skills, and that's what I focus on, and that's what I actually encourage all of my employees to realize about themselves, is that, you know, what I learned about myself, I started to realize I need to learn about other people. Then you need to start emailing the clients. If you're a very outgoing person and you like talking to people, you need to get on the phones. You know, let's increase, you know, what it is that your skills are to the benefit of all of us and the team. And, you know, I started to really zero in on that and showing everybody what it is that you can really do. You don't have to, you know, do the same thing every single day. There are other things that you can do.
Strengths.
Strengths, that's a big one. We did a whole show on strengths. So give us your advice to all of our listeners out there that are managers that are looking to excel. You know, rewind to earlier in your life. What would you tell them?
Yeah.
I would tell them first, the very first thing you need to do is focus on yourself and learn about yourself. Learn, like you were asking at the beginning of the show, what's some good and bad? Tell me the good and bad. And I thought that was amazingly interesting because I actually haven't done that. You know, I haven't actually gone to an employee and say, tell me about me. What do you think about me?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to steal that actually. But yeah, I would say definitely just learn about yourself and things that you can do better and actually be intentional about it. Don't just, don't stop there, improve on the things that you know that you can improve on, and then learn about your employees. So active listening, resonating with them, finding out what their talents and skills are and helping them to succeed in their roles.
So I'm gonna help you, give you a little advice. And this is for all of our listeners too. And me asking people what's bad about me and getting that feedback. Okay. If you just walk into your employees on Monday back at work and say, hey, I had this cool experience and I want you to give me the good and the bad. Here's what's going to happen. You're not going to get anything from them. I lived this. I was that way and I did it. So here's what we do on the show. We're going to do it here in a few minutes. We talk about this and here's what I want you to do with your team is when you start talking to them and having conversations, when you're finished with them, say, okay, let's say you're having a one-on-one meeting. So when you're finished, say, okay, what'd you learn from today's meeting? And then your employee has to write it down. You have to write it down. I say, all right, now who's going to help hold you accountable? Make sure we take this learning and put it into practice. And then you're going to say at the end, you're going to say, so you're going to learn, you're going to grow, and you're going to start leading. Now what happened, if I would have asked you on show number 1 what I'm bad at, you guys, nobody would have answered it. So what I'm saying is it takes time to build up that trust in order to get that feedback. Because a lot of what happens in management, right, not leadership, in management, leadership takes time. But in management, I'll walk into you and say, Deshaun, what you got any ideas on how we can make more widgets? And then you're going to give me your ideas, and I'm going to go, that's a terrible idea. Why? Because it's not what I wanted to hear.
Right.
But once you start building that trust, and then you start giving me some feedback, and I start listening to it, I might not put it into place right away, but I don't shut you down. That's when you start crossing that bridge. So my advice to you and anybody out there that wants to do this, it's a great skill to have, to ask people, hey, what can I improve on? It takes time. If somebody comes out and you're going to find somebody, just take the law of diffusion, it's out there. 10% of the people, somebody's just going to say, you know what, Sean, here's what you really stink at, and you need to fix this. You're going to be like, whoa, it's going to hit you hard.
Yeah.
80% of them are going to be like, let me think about this. You got to build up the trust. 10% of them are like, nope, I'm never going to tell you that. I'm never going there. And that's fine.
That's one of the things that I learned about myself when I started to focus on that, is that one of the privileges that I have, and I acknowledge that this is a privilege, and I use this to my advantage, is that I was always comfortable speaking with leadership and those above me because I started when I was 14. I know these people. I know you guys. I'm not afraid to bring up, certain issues that I want to address. And then employees would tell me certain things, but then the president of our company would have a floor meeting, and I'm like, this is an opportunity to say what it is that you were complaining about. And then he'd ask the floor any questions, and I'm looking around, I'm like, why isn't anyone saying anything? But then I realized, everyone's different, and you can't expect everyone to be as comfortable as you are. Right. But what you can do as a leader is be an ally and an advocate for those who aren't always comfortable, or you can, like you said, make them feel comfortable enough to address certain things with you.
Yeah.
All right, I got a quick question for our producer, Kevin E. How are we doing on time? Because I kind of lost track when we got started.
You're about 45 minutes.
We're 45 minutes in? Yep. Oh, dang. All right, so with that, we got to run to a quick break.
Are you ready to unlock the potential of your team? You know good relationships are built on trust. And this starts with knowing yourself, knowing your team, knowing who you are communicating with, and knowing how they will respond.
But how do you do that?
Engagement.
What is that?
Engagement identifies your strengths, opportunities, needs, and productivity. Increased communication, trust, and connection enable you to reach your full professional potential today and in the future.
Okay, Then what?
Engagement is a unique and proven tool that helps clients experience higher sales and profits while increasing productivity and customer loyalty. You can unlock the potential of your team. Discover how your business can benefit from engagement.
Dignity Leadership Consulting. Learning, growing, leading.
All right, so I got a question. Welcome back to the show. But I got a question for you. You did our engagement survey.
Yes.
And what'd you think?
As I was answering the questions, I was saying to myself, I still have a lot to work on. I knew that, and I like that, you encouraged me to just be honest as possible while you're answering the questions. But like I would read the question, I would read the answers, and I'm like, my answer is the wrong thing here.
No.
But yeah, but when I received my report, I immediately emailed Rich, and I couldn't believe how accurate it was about me and the way that I approach things. It was very, very insightful. So I would like to reread it a couple of more times, but it was pretty shocking.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been a little pressured on time. So when we do the engagement, we go through them and then we coach them. Mm-hmm. I've been slipping with Deshaun. I haven't gone through the coaching exercise with him. We've been busy, been doing different things. I owe him that. Mm-hmm. But I had a client call not too long ago, and I've known this client for a long time, probably 15, maybe 20 years. But I've only met him in person one other time, twice in those 15 years. And he reached out to me, and we were going back and forth in DMs. I said, hey, you know what? Go do our engagement assessment, and I'll walk through this. And he's been, honestly, probably 30 years, maybe 40 years in the automotive industry. So I went through the one-on-one coaching session with him. And he was finished, and I'm kind of like, okay, I think I reached him. 5 minutes later, I get a text. Wow. That's all he said. And I said, is that a good wow? And he goes, you totally opened up my insights onto what motivates me, what I need to look for in a job, why, some things bother me about the job I'm in right now. It's he's like, bam, door wide open. I'm like, yes. We did, and that's a person that's been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
You think you'd know? I mean, so it's never too late to learn.
Well, 30 years in.
When are we scheduling that meeting?
I know. When are you scheduling
Next
it?
week.
And
I'll-
then
my
you
wow
come back.
moment.
Next week we'll make sure we get it on the calendar.
Yeah,
I owe
okay.
you that, and I apologize. That is not how I do things.
That is not how Rich does things.
No, and it's embarrassing. But you know what? I'm being vulnerable. I got to mention up. All right, so we've got. If I'm correct on time, we're down to about 12 minutes left.
Oof.
All right, so at the end of the show, we always do
Completely accurate. I would say we've got about 30, and there's 5 left.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to run through it. So Kevin E's going to jump in with
Yeah.
us. Deshaun, you're going to jump in with us. So we're going to go through my why statement. It's my favorite part of it. So we're going to talk about what you learned today. We're going to talk about, so that's the learning, growing, how are you going to use it? And then we're going to talk last about who's going to hold you accountable. So Brooke, it's up to you and I, because Kevin E, I'm always putting him on the spot, and he's like, I get it. I've been putting him on the spot.
Yeah.
So between you and I, we'll go first. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I want you to go first. I've got thoughts this time. So what?
I know you've been writing things down. You're awesome.
Listen.
I'm over here with all my gadgets, and I didn't write a dang thing down.
Yeah, put it on me for just a second.
You want to? Oh.
Let me show you my paperwork. Do you see what it says? It says business meeting notes. And this one is all filled. I'm ready. Sometimes I don't remember things, but today.
You got it. So
Okay.
do you want to ask me the question first? Britt?
Yes. So what did you learn today?
I learned the importance of vulnerability and vision.
Yeah.
And what it does in the end. The things you were telling us that you're doing, you had no experience doing that. You didn't have any experience within the automotive industry. You didn't know how to bartend, and you didn't know how to lead a fighter, but you had the vision and the faith that you could do it. There was nothing stopping you. I heard it in your voice. That's what I learned is what you've got to have is you've got to have a willingness to step out of your comfort zone, willingness to fail, which is the vulnerability side, and then having the faith to see that even whether or not it's going to produce the thing, that you're going to keep going down that because you know somehow it's going to impact somebody and be a benefit.
That's good. How are
That's
you
what
going to
I learned.
use that?
We're not there yet. We got to go around.
Oh, we're
Everybody's
all
gotta
doing
ask.
learning first?
Yes,
I'm getting
we
ahead
all
of
gotta
myself.
do learning.
Sorry. I was ready to go down the list.
Yeah.
My brid.
So what'd you
Okay.
learn?
What did I learn? Man, I got a lot of notes over here. This was good. I'm going to start taking notes like this every time. I love, okay, when you said bar versus office in the setting, and that's when things just started like going off for me, perception versus reality. And that vulnerability of paying more attention, there was something about that I realized there's even a part of me right now with where I'm at, just in my own life journey and everything else, that perception versus reality, I'm going to hone in on, because without that, I know naturally I'm a great leader. I am. I have natural abilities that other people have to learn. I still have a lot to learn though. And there are things that I have to put in place. And I'll go into more of that when like how I'm going to use it. But without the perception versus without like being aware of both pieces and honing in deeper, I cannot grow. Yeah.
Kevin E.
Oh, I'm going third?
Yeah, why not?
All right, sounds good.
You're on first this time.
Going around the circle.
Yeah, we're
that's
going around
true.
the circle. We're going clockwise.
Yeah.
I think, well, you kind of stole mine this time, Rich. The
No,
vulnerability
we can
thing
have
was
the same
also
thing.
mine. All right, yeah. But it struck me more, not as much in the, when Deshaun was talking about the automotive and the bar industry, but the MMA manager thing. That's really stepping out of the box and having willingness to fail.
Thank you, man.
Because what happens if you fail in that? He kicks your butt.
Right, you have no idea what you're doing. Yeah, and you could end up in the hospital.
I'll just say, you end up with an ass whooping.
And that was one of the things that I would definitely was a little fearful of is, we're selling all these tickets and we have 100 people driving to Massachusetts, and what if you get knocked out in the first round, man? Then what? So
what?
that was
That's
that
pressure.
was some scary stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so what did you learn?
I really love that you said inspiration versus aspiration. And there's a big difference between that, and you're absolutely dead on. And if you can inspire those who aspire, so
Yeah.
I want to take that with me.
Cool. All right. That's up
Okay,
to
we're
round
going back
two.
again. Round 2.
We need a bell. Ding, ding.
I know, I was thinking that.
Just for the MMA fighter. Where's the bell?
I know that much about it. Yeah.
You're giving me
I
PTSD.
know, boom, 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 boom.
We don't know what we don't want to
I'm like,
do.
whoa, he didn't get knocked out.
Round 2.
I might get knocked out on this one because I know a question's coming. Hit me with it.
How are you going to use what you learned?
It goes. I tend to be a perfectionist. I want to be. I want things to be right. I don't want to screw things up, and I've got to learn to be a little bit vulnerable and understand that it's the vision, it's the end goal,
Yep.
and it's not necessarily the way I might say it has to be done.
Yeah.
There's more than one way to get from A to Z. We might take we might go around the O a few times and do a couple circles and just get stuck. But part of it is you got to keep moving. And I think for me, that's where it comes in is the vulnerability side. It's like, look, you're stuck, but you got to keep moving. That's it for me.
That's good.
All right,
That's
Brooke.
good. Yeah.
How are you gonna use this?
I need to go back, and this is kind of where it is. I need to do an inventory and be really honest with myself. That perception versus reality, like what am I bringing in? Do you know how we create our own stories in our mind, right? And oftentimes the stories we're telling ourselves aren't the real story. I mean, we do it all the time. We can be our own worst enemy, and we've got to be so careful about the thoughts and what we're going through. And I am an overthinker. I analyze and reanalyze and analyze. I was telling Rich and Emily before the show, I didn't sleep at all last night. Like I'm in this place where I'm just constantly thinking of all the what ifs,
I just thought you didn't get your makeup on today. So that's what happened.
No, my makeup's on now.
I know, but I can see a little bit of the tired, and that's you being vulnerable.
And I am being vulnerable. It's been an interesting time, and whatever that is. But part of that's just it. It's that perception versus reality. So how I'm going to use it is just I need to take an inventory right now, a self inventory. That's where I'm at. Yeah. What about you, Kev?
I think, and I've had a pretty good career history as far as stepping outside the box, but it's been a long time since I've done that. I haven't been as vulnerable in recent years as I should be, so I'd like to work on that.
Nice.
So you're going to work on being more vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me,
Deshaun?
so inspiration. My story is inspirational as an adjective, but I need to inspire as a verb. So I think I need to be more intentional about, inspiring people because, you pointed out the things that were inspirational as far as what I was doing with my best friend Scott, but I wasn't intentionally inspiring him. And I think that if I could effectively do that, then that would benefit a lot of people.
Well, sometimes having just doing it, right? and going with it. And this is what I've learned through my career. I learn a lot from, hey, you're doing it wrong. And when it goes wrong, you're like, that didn't work. But when you do it right, and you just touched on this, when you do it right and it works, you're like, you just keep going about it.
Right.
And then now I think we just hit the aha moment for you where it's like, okay, inspirational, I need to be intentional. Which is powerful. That's
That
awesome.
action, that verb,
Yeah.
I love that.
All right. So we're going to flip something. I'm going to flip the script.
okay.
We're going to reverse the clock and go backwards. We're going to stay with Deshaun because I like what he's talking about. So how are you going to put this into action? Who's going to hold you accountable? That's we just talked about the action, but who's going to hold you? Who's going to be your accountability partner so you can check in with, whether it be once a month, once a week, but routinely just say, hey, I'm working on this inspiration thing. Here's where I'm at.
You.
Awesome. I love doing this. I really do. I know I do.
As long as you're okay with it.
Heck yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
And we just got to get that first meeting out the way.
We will. Well, we've got one on the calendar for next Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
we're
awesome. And I just want to thank you because, when I met you, that was my second conference. And I'm telling you.
What?
That was
You're
my
like a
second
pro.
conference. And that's another thing about the bartending and transferable
Fake it till
skills.
you make it.
Yeah, exactly right. But the bartending thing gave me that sort of experience, and I set up bars at different events and talked to people and stuff. So when I ended up at these events, I'm like, it's the same
can do
thing.
this.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is talking about something that I've done my whole life.
Yep.
But I just wanted to thank you because you have been very, very intentional about our relationship and continuing that, and I really appreciate that. So.
Nice.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to reverse again because I got to
Okay.
go because now my brain's flooded. So I do the same thing with Kevin E. So Kevin E and I meet once a week. You and I are meeting bi-weekly, which is fine. You got to set up a cadence that works for you.
Yeah.
And here's the thing is we always hold each other accountable. And if one of us misses, we reschedule and we figure it out. All right, so let's put this into a real life practice. If you're a manager out there, and you're having a one-on-one meeting with your staff. Let's say you've set it up, whatever your cadence is, it's weekly. Every Friday at 1 o'clock, you're going to meet and you're going to talk about what went on. If you are the manager and you cancel that meeting, you're sending a bad signal. You're telling them that you no longer care about them, they're no longer important to you, and you no longer trust them. Now, you don't have to say a word. You just hit cancel, but that's the signal you're sending out. Now, if you are the employee, listen to this, and you have a one-on-one with your manager, and you're going, oh my goodness, I hope he cancels this week, or I hope she cancels this week, or I really want to cancel, or I'm going to find a way out of this. You have a problem, and it's probably you're either working for the wrong person, or you're in the wrong job, and you're not inspired. And what we need to do is we need to help you find you a role that's going to make you happy and get you going. Because if either one of you is always looking for a way out, that is a terrible relationship. And put this into like mom and dads or husband wives or spouse on spouse, whatever the relationship is. And one of you wants out, that's toxic.
Right.
If one of you wants out, if you're the manager and you want out, that's toxic, or want the employee, that's toxic, vice versa.
Yeah.
So that's my words of wisdom. So let's go on to Brooke.
Accountable. I don't know if you have space, and I rarely ask people to do this, but Deshaun, I would love to meet with you.
Absolutely.
We made a connection. Awesome. Hey, I didn't say who's going to hold me
No, you
accountable to my vulnerability.
You were kind of going on, so I just was going to let you. We were going to come back.
Kevin, you and I meet once a week.
Yep. Wednesdays at 6.
Yep. You gotta slow me down because we talked about this earlier in the beginning of the show. I'm putting this one on you. Sometimes you just got to say, stop talking. It's my turn. Rich, you're not being vulnerable. And dude, you're not going to piss me off, okay? I might get frustrated, but I need you to do that to help me.
All right. And that will help with my vulnerability.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right.
What about you, Kevin? Who are you going to keep it?
Oh, of course.
Same?
Yeah.
Like going back? Okay. I like that. I feel like more happened in this meeting than has happened in a couple months
So
for
we
me.
got everybody
Yeah.
going? All right. So that's another wrap on a wonderful podcast. I want to thank Deshaun Shepard for flying in all the way from Maryland to Texas
Thank
just
you,
to
Deshaun.
to be with us. It was an
Next
awesome
time we
show.
meet, it's in Maryland for Blue Crab.
Exactly.
So-
on hot dogs.
On hot dog.
Yeah, if you want any more information on what we can do for you at Dignity Leadership Consulting, find us on the World Wide Web at dignity-leadership.com. Keep paddling.
Keep paddling.